You're listening to Film Poems. We're not lying to you, but we can't tell you the truth. I'm Chelsea Christopher.
Hey, I'm Will.
And here at Film Poems, we watch one film a week and talk about it.
Sometimes two. Sometimes two.
Yeah. I also write a poem about it. Our categories each month are award winners, foreign films, a double feature of our making, and wildcard, where we choose any film we please from the craziest to the sanest. We also go to the movie theater once a month and see a modern movie, but you can only hear that bonus episode on our Patreon.
Right. And we also reserve the right to change the rules arbitrarily.
Yes, that is our right. We will do it if we must. You can become a member at patreon.com/filmpoems, where you can find loads of bonus treasures. One of our favorites is when we record overtime and give you the entire rest of the recorded conversation that we couldn't fit into the free version you're listening to now. Our Patreon also includes the aforementioned bonus modern episode, any and all of my film poems, the occasional film essay I write for the films we watch, behind the scenes goodies from the two of us, and all the things that inspired us while watching, including images and clips we found and dug up for you. All that and more can be yours at patreon.com/filmpoems. Check it out.
We also might do a collection of poems, like in a book.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely something coming up at some point. Yeah. And lastly, before we get into this week's film, we just want to mention that if you join us on our Instagrams at Chelsea Christopher and at Will Turner Sanders, you'll be able to see the month ahead and all the films we've chosen for the current and coming month. That way you can watch along with us, and we highly recommend that, as there will be endless spoilers throughout each episode. We will not hold back. And now, without further ado, let's get into the week. This is week 1 of the month, and so we're starting with the first theme of every month, which is award-winning. The film we chose to cover that fit the theme was BARAKA by Ron Fricke.
BARAKA.
Yes, BARAKA. So, Will, I'm going to have you give a synopsis in a sec, if that's even remotely possible for this film, but I'm going to read my poem first, and then we'll get into it.
Let's do it.
All right. So, the poem for BARAKA. The dream in the eye of the monkey is the song Earth wants us to see. It's the one we first had sung to thee. A dervish cries, reprieve from night, as stars dance with him, spectral flight, praying back to whence he came, let him be in love again. Animals saw potential from fur and nighttime's dew, lights that beam of red and green and praise the glorious news. It spun lassos towards the moon and brought it down with feet, and yet we cry for little beasts who must part with their beaks. What did you expect, planet of blue? We bathe in holy waters, we stars wear ruby shoes. Don't laugh at me.
It's the beaks.
It's the beaks. I'm upset about the beaks. All right. We're already here. We're already there. The song sings on, no matter where. When the room gets cold, you forget the thrum, but the drum beats on, no nightmares won. You can see, in the light of bright plains, in the droning lull of weaponry, in the beauty of the same. Echo back to us the tune, and we will build wonder from the sky. With all that primal birthed in us, the dream is always nigh. The sun is still inside the room, the corner keeps its pointed groove, and though the night may cut you through, the sun is still inside the room.
I think that's the synopsis of the film. It's really beautiful.
Thank you.
It's really beautiful. I love it. The beaks just. So nowhere in the credits does this film say no animals were harmed in the making of this film.
I know, because they clearly were.
They clearly are. Yeah,
it's on camera.
But it's a documentary, so it is a document. It's absolutely it's a non-narrative documentary.
Okay.
And you're asking for a synopsis.
Yeah, if you can even.
I'm not going to give summarizing it myself a trust or giving a synopsis myself a try, but
yeah, look it up.
It's too big. But I got one. No, I got one. I'm going to just give you some
Okay.
background on it. So they went to 24 countries in 12 months. So they had this whole difficulty with getting permission into the countries.
Mm-hmm.
So they would write letters, or they faxed. It's made in 1992, or released in 92. So
The year I was born.
Year you were born. Yeah, there you go. There you go. So they faxed these letters.
Yeah.
There's so much to talk about. Okay, all right. So here's what, when they sent the proposal to film in this country, whatever country it is, to the respective consulate, here's what they said. So, many documentaries are made to explore the isolation man feels. BARAKA will explore and exalt the human spirit by emphasizing the flow of energy between people from around the world, and by revealing the often unrecognized phenomenon of the interconnectedness of all beings as a living, breathing whole. Yeah. How does that hit you?
It's good. Yeah, there's a documentary about this film on YouTube that we both watched, and I remember he said something like, I basically told everyone that we were filming a prayer, and everyone, it was a different time then, everyone was so receptive to it.
The Berlin Wall had fallen. Yeah. No 9/11. Like the U.S. ruled the world, and people were kind of into it.
Yeah. Love it when there's a daddy.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, they describe it as like a global orchestra, like seeing the planet all at once.
Yeah.
And I think that's really accurate. So the film's not narrative. There's just these sprawling images of life happening, animals happening, Earth happening, and beautiful, crazy music for an hour and a half. And one of the questions I had for you, Will, was, is this your favorite movie of all time?
Well, yeah, it totally is. It's 100%.
We're starting with your favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, it's 100% my favorite movie of all time. I mean, I have some favorites. There's no doubt, but this one takes the cake every time. Yeah.
That's cool.
I don't think anyone listening to the podcast should listen to it if they haven't seen the film. So if you're listening, just turn this off. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. You can just watch it on YouTube.
Yeah, you'll get way more out of the conversation if you can listen after.
Yeah, and then come back and listen to us talk about it.
Because you just won't get it. It's an experience.
It is an experience, yeah. Well, there's definitely something to get.
Yes.
But it's really hard to say what it is. It's like, yeah, it's an experience.
Yeah, it's like I was saying when we were talking about this a few weeks ago, like it feels less like a film and more like a guided meditation where you are just being presented with what is, everything that is.
And it's very non-judgmental.
Yeah, and you can project onto it with your thoughts and your feelings or not. The film really doesn't seem, I think, to have an opinion. It's really just showing you everything.
Yeah.
And I suppose you could argue that there's some kind of narrative to it, but it doesn't really feel like it. It feels more like a monkey that represents a kind of Buddha is opening its eyes or closing its eyes and is beginning the dream of Earth.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
I think you're right. There's not a narrative, and they didn't intend to make one. But the edit is very smart. Like the cut's really good because they use rhythm and tempo and volume and intensity very intelligently. So to me, it looked like the film does kind of follow an energetic through line. Like in the sense that, at like the climax of a narrative feature, you would feel a lot of intensity, and then in the denouement you would feel relief, and you might feel curiosity in the first act. So I think they do a really good job keeping that, but it's not a story that anyone's telling. And it's like when you're that abstracted, that might not even be the right word though, because it's a non-abstract. It's very non-abstract. They're not. Yeah, like you said earlier, like it's just showing you what is. They're not showing you anything. You're not thinking about thinking in that sense.
Yeah, it's like it presents something like the seed of an idea and just lets it like fly across the wind. Just
Yeah,
okay,
no.
here's that idea in this part of the world, here's that idea in this part of the world, here's these two that ideas side by side.
What idea seeds strike out to you?
Well, so one that's really like very memorable, which I included in the poem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
let's
yeah, yeah.
let's talk about the chickens.
Oh no, not the chickens.
No, the chickens is side by side with people in the city.
I'm
And
shaking my head.
no,
Yeah, that's
but
true.
listen, like I know, I but you watch the chickens on this conveyor belt and their beaks are getting chopped off in this machine.
Well, they're getting singed. I think. I don't
Singed,
think they're
pinched
actually.
off,
Yeah,
I don't know, but they're
they keep
gone.
their beaks, but I think they like
The tip is,
something. Yeah, the tip is
yeah,
removed.
the point.
I guess so they can't peck their way because they're chickens being raised for, I guess, slaughter or for their eggs. And I think one of the things that happens in industrial farms is that the chickens they peck and then injure themselves and then get infections and all that kind of nasty business. So I think they singe off the tip.
Okay, well that makes me feel a little better, but it's side by side with people in Tokyo like going to work. And,
Right.
and you could look at that, like I had an interesting experience looking at that because when I see the chickens, like the first time I saw them I just started crying. I was like, that's so horrible.
You did, yeah.
I was like sobbing. I was like, they're just on the direct path to their like little execution. It's so sad and like cold and brutal and machine like.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah, right.
But then it's side by side with people operating like machines, moving through these machines of subways. Are they also going towards their execution? I don't know. But it's
well, definitely. I mean, we kind of all are, aren't we?
yeah, we all are. And like upon the second time of watching that sequence, I still didn't really look at the chickens, but like I didn't feel like it was tragic anymore. I was like, oh, they're
Okay.
just the chickens are just now part of the machine-like rhythm we've been able to now achieve in Earth time. They're just part of that.
Yeah.
Like they're even more part of the song now.
Right.
And even if it is less like obvious and direct that people are also headed towards their execution, the truth remains that they are.
A lot of the film deals with death. I mean, there's a live cremation.
Yes. Oh my God.
Did you clock in the documentary when they said that was one of the unplanned shots?
Yeah, it was some grandpa's funeral.
Yeah.
And
on the River Ganges.
Yes.
So it was a Hindu cremation ceremony.
Yeah, he was covered with all these beautiful fabrics and yeah. And then they show you his face like decaying as it burns.
And his foot.
And
his foot, which did not catch fire because it was sticking off the funeral pyre.
Yeah, yeah. And you also see him like pushed to the side while they're preparing the next one.
Oh, I missed that.
I think that's what I read it as.
So wild.
He's just sitting there, no longer like being attended to, just smoking.
It's smoldering even.
Yes.
And there's so many good like other kind of smolder moments, like the volcano at the beginning.
Yeah.
And like the incense that they're throwing in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. This movie's insane.
This movie's insane. We highly recommend it.
Like I
go insane with us.
Yeah, no, I am. Yeah. I'm a little afraid to like go full out there because it's so. So this time I watched it on 2x because I didn't have time to Because I've seen it probably like 4 or 5 times now,
Yeah,
but this
yeah.
last time I watched it, and it was way different watching it on 2x. Yeah, yeah, we can talk more about that later.
Do you have a favorite shot or moment?
Well, a lot of the shots were then used in my favorite video game of all time,
Alpha Centauri.
Sid Meier's Alpha Centauri. So
Such a good game.
if you're a serious geek, you know you be knowing. I don't know if those are my favorite shots though. Oh, the oil fields, the Kuwaiti oil fields.
The burning?
Yeah,
That's your favorite?
yeah, yeah. Because it was filmed during the Gulf War, during Desert Storm, and you see they shot um, the oil fields burning.
Mm.
If you've seen Jarhead, that they have that scene in Jarhead where it's raining oil and on their faces, and the filmmakers talk about that in the documentary that they would just get oil on their face, and like there were several, not several, maybe there were a couple instances because they do go to war-torn countries like Kuwait at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and a couple of times there were live landmines, and like one of them they shot in Cambodia, and they didn't even know that where they were shooting there were active landmines, like in
Oh
a
yeah,
temple.
that's right. And
So
they
they
were
were
like,
done.
"Yeah, we found 4 today." I was like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
right.
okay, thanks."
Cool.
Cool.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite shot?
Yeah, yeah, it happens right in the beginning after we see the monkey. It's in that like little village or town or city or whatever.
In Tibet?
I think it's might be Tibet. It's all the people who are like dusting the ground, and there's like those
Yeah, that's
shots.
Tibet.
Okay, and they have those buildings with like the painted eyes on them.
Yeah.
There's this one sequence right before my second favorite shot, which is where there's 2 men by those eyes, and they're throwing paint down on the wall below that makes the eyes look like it's grown like a chest.
You know what?
Like breasts.
I think that might be butter.
That's butter?
Maybe, I don't know for certain, but
it's very orange.
In in Tibetan culture, like it's just butter. They make butter sculptures.
Oh my god.
They do butter anointment. They like there's all kinds of like they have like a weird butter culture.
Will, let's go to Butterland. I want to go to Butterland.
Remember my former roommate in New York who was like obsessed with butter. And like she had, poor thing, I love her, but like the anxiety was so bad, all we could do was joke about butter. And, like,
yeah. Aw. But okay, so that's my second favorite shot. My favorite shot comes right before that, where it's like this long zoom or long dolly even, where it's just a man standing in a, I don't know what you would technically call it. It looks like a blanket, and it's wrapped around his entire body, and he's got a golden dot on his forehead, and his skin is so dark, and he's just looking at the camera like this, and everything in the background, it's like the beginning of the day. You can see people are like throwing seeds or rice or something to like bless the ground.
Oh yeah. It's like dawn,
I don't
right?
know what it is about that shot. It's the framing, the coloring, that man's expression, the beautiful sacred acts happening in the background. I just love that shot.
He's so still and stoic and just solid. So you kind of get the sense that, or I got the sense that he's a part of eternity because he's just there. Like, and dawn is a time of change. And there he just is.
Yeah. That's what's really interesting to me about going back and forth between seeing so many primitive, quote unquote, primitive cultures in this.
Wow.
That's what hold on. I don't mean an insult. That's what.
Okay, Jacques Rousseau.
I said quote unquote. Okay, I'm safe.
Right.
That's what
the noble savages.
I didn't call them a savage. Okay, now, hold on. Just let me make my point. So we go back and forth between the people who are in this like
indigenous.
Like, okay, thank you. That's a better word.
There you go.
They're they're in this indigenous space,
Yeah.
and then there's the people who are in the more quote unquote modern space.
Right.
And like I was saying earlier, the modern space seems to operate in this very particular rhythm that's very machine-like.
Definitely.
And in the indigenous space, it feels like what you're talking about, with that sense of eternity coming off of that person. And so you can really feel the timelessness off of the indigenous people, because I think in a way they are closer to the original rhythm of Earth. Like they are still in the song, and human beings that are more modern have kind of found a way to make their own, or riff on it, or alter it, change it. I found myself feeling like I want to be like those people that get to be closer to the song. And
that's such a beautiful way to put that too, closer to the song.
Thank you.
Did you get that from Alpha Centauri? You did.
No, I got that from my poem.
Oh, from your okay.
Yeah. Okay. But and the thing is, like, we're seeing all of these different walks of life and all these different speeds and cultures happening, and ways of life, and how people spend their time. And some are more sacred, and some are just more focused on work, which in a way could also be sacred. I mean, this is the point that I want to get to, is I'm really curious about observing a film like this. And when you're in a meditative state, you achieve, what's the right word? It's not ambivalence, but you just kind of let go enough that you can kind of, I don't know if it's coolly observe or observe with love. It might depend on like the kind of meditation you're doing. But I think like you're able to have like almost like a bird's eye over soul view of things.
Yeah, that's I think that's definitely it. Like we both kind of got into John Vervaeke for like a while.
Yeah.
And he talked about how meditation, particularly mindfulness meditation, is about, it's not just about becoming like detached, like you say, or disinterested. I watched a video at Marcus Aurelius the other night, and like Aurelius calls it disinterestedness. It's like disinterested. You have to be disinterested.
Yeah.
Like not attached to an outcome, or not attached to form, or whatever.
Right.
But anyway, like Vervaeke was saying that the purpose of meditation is not just to achieve that, but also to be able to zoom in, to become like hyper focused on the smallest detail, and then also be able to zoom out, and then also be able to zoom back in, and so that you're not just locked to one perspective. You have an overscope. You have that oversoul level, like you're saying, and then you're able to zoom in. I think the film does that really well.
I think the film does that beautifully, but I think the thing is, when you do kind of achieve that state, you can slip into something like ambivalence. We talked about this too. It could also even slip into sociopathy if you follow it further. And
I agree.
I look at these people and these beings and these things that are happening, and there are funerals, there are tragic, quote unquote tragic things that we would normally say that's sad in this film, like the children that have to care for other children on the streets and are begging. You know, the first time I saw that broke my heart. The second time I saw it, I was able to have that kind of disinterested remove. And
how did that make you feel? I mean, is that like
when I can enter that state, I love that. I want to be like that all the time. And like, I would hope that no matter what situation I was in, I would be able to tap into that. But here's my question, which I've posed to you before. Like, we're two people in America. We are technically white.
I'm authentically white. You know,
You're hyper white.
I'm hyper white.
I'm white.
You're Italian.
I'm
You
Italian
know.
who became white because suddenly Italians became white. But
Demography's weird. Yeah.
but
Race isn't real. It's
I
a
never
weird
grew
thing.
up feeling white. I was treated like I was different my whole life.
Yeah, you have an ethnicity. It's like whiteness isn't an ethnicity.
Yeah, but
being Italian is, you know, so it's a weird thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
But so there's that. We're in America. We are not in a war-torn country. And I always wonder if when I'm seeing things like this, if I were from one of these places or if I were from a war-torn country, would I be able to have this disinterested remove of life where I can see horrible atrocities and still go, this is all still beautiful because it's all still part of life. It's part of the rhythm of life and death. Like, is that a luxury or is that the goal of meditative state?
That's a really good question. I mean, I think, was your question finished?
Yeah. That's my question.
Yeah. Okay.
I want to know what you think.
I mean, and we're also talking about this like while Israel Gaza is still going on, and there's so much more conflict all over the world, and like I think there's still stuff going on in Sudan that I didn't take the time to learn about, which maybe I should have. Venezuela just had elections, and probably Maduro is going to stay, even though it's kind of even though it seems that Maduro like seriously lost, he's going to stay in power. So, I don't know. I think it's a really kind of multifaceted question. I'm not quite sure how to answer it because I can really see so many sides to it. It's like, is it a luxury that we don't live in a war-torn country? Well, obviously, yeah, compared to someone else's life.
Well, yeah, that's obvious, yeah.
Yeah. Did the price of that luxury or the cost of that luxury is that you develop or you fail to develop a sensitivity to what it's like to be in a war-torn place. And if empathy is the contemporary basis for morality, right? If we're moral because it's based on how we feel and nothing else, or how we're supposed to feel, and we didn't grow, we're dull to these things, how can we even claim to be moral? So either we can't be moral, or feeling is not the proper basis of morality. Or it's or we're just overthinking it because we live in a machine world and we're not connected to
the sun,
organic nature, right? Yeah, exactly. So you really can get caught in a real head trip about these things.
Yeah, and like to be perfectly honest, I don't care what the answer is. Like,
you don't care what the answer is?
No,
that doesn't keep you up at night. It keeps me up at night.
Well, because I feel I'm content, with knowing that I get to even experience that disinterestedness at all. But it does does keep me up at night is the question of like sociopathy or things like that. Like,
okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
There's something I want to say about this, but
no, go for it. Go for it. Go ahead.
Well, as I said, I watched it on 2x.
Yeah.
Right. I watched it on twice speed just to make up for time, and I'd seen the film a few times before. The first time I saw it was at normal speed. Right. The first time I saw it was in probably 2010. And 2008 is when the digital remaster was made. By the way, we haven't even talked about the amazing technical components of this film, like the time-lapse cameras
that he invented, right?
That he invented. Yeah, it's crazy. Well, so anyway, back to your question about the sociopathy. So it's like typically, like if you see a cat in the road, right? Like the light bounces off the cat into your retina, and then you just have sensory information that goes into your brain into the basically like the base of your spine, um, or the base of your brainstem, not the base of your spine. That's in your butt. Into your brainstem. The base of your brainstem, right? And so you would think that the signal processing would work its way up the chain until you got to cat. Like maybe you would see, okay, you would see color, okay, color, okay, form, okay, form, okay, movement, okay, movement, okay, this is like a mammal, okay, mammal, okay, feline, okay, house cat, boom. But that's actually not how your brain works. Your brain works in the opposite direction.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Right. So it sends the higher order understanding down. So as soon as the retina gets triggered, your brain defaults to the thing that it last saw that's most similar to that information. So when I watched Baraka on 2x speed, it started with the chickens. I didn't recognize them as little chicks. I recognized them as color.
Oh.
Because it was moving so fast. And then when it got to the people, especially during the time lapse moments, I didn't really recognize them as I could tell that they're humans, right? But they didn't. But there was something visceral missing. Like there was some kind of empathetic link that was not functioning, and I think it was because it was playing so fast.
Yeah.
So it made me wonder what is the relationship between tempo and speed and rhythm to recognizing other human beings. And I feel like this goes back to your question, right? If we're living in a machine world and we're not living in an organic world, does our brain fail to recognize other humans as human? Right? Like, because we don't have a, you know what I mean? So there's this kind of issue, like where does humanity start and begin, especially like across demography lines, and like biases get in the way. But if you're looking at just like a purely neuroscientific circuitry level, it to me it seems like there's a lot of questions that haven't been answered, particularly about modernity. You know, do you have any thoughts about that? I know that doesn't answer your question, but
super interesting though. No, I think speed really has something to do with it. Like, I really, really do. You can see that in the film, and you can see that in your own life. I mean, we can see that directly in our own lives, Will, because we used to live in the city, and then we went back to the
New York
City. I've lived in the South also many times. You're from the South. Like, it's a different experience. It's completely different. And like, I don't spend a ton of time on social media, so promoting this podcast is going to be interesting.
What's your secret?
And I honestly don't talk to that many people that often. Like when I'm alone, which is a good chunk of the time, I am moving at my own internal rhythm, which is very slow. And as soon as I have to start cranking it up, I find myself getting more annoyed. I find myself like more prone to just trying to do whatever it takes to operate in that rhythm. Fuck everything else.
Yeah. There's a frenetic, rushed, kind of forced character to it. And not just for you, like I think for everyone.
I think I don't know as much about neurology as you do, but
that was the extent of what I know.
We heard it all right here.
So now you do.
Okay, great. I mean, I imagine that there's something about that speed that triggers something inside of us that feels like when you're running in the fucking savannah or some shit, you know? Like having to survive at all costs. Or like not even survive at all costs, that's true, but turn off any other function that doesn't relate to doing the task at hand. Like,
and I think that probably includes the empathy we were talking about.
Like if I'm at a barista job, you have to move like a machine. You must. You have to find all the little tricks so you can quickly swing your arm this way and do this a million times over and over and over again. And anything
Yeah.
else that happens outside of that is unnecessary. You have to be aware of everything that's going on around you, but like you can't feel anything except like maybe a split second of connection with the customer, or like pleasure and being able to move so smoothly over and over again, or like a
Mm.
connection with your teammates and like doing the job at hand, but like
Mm.
not much more than that. And so I prefer slowing down and being able
Definitely.
to see the way my own body wants to operate, and if that rhythm is different than other people, which it often is, or if it's even
Yeah.
different than nature, which sometimes it is and sometimes it's not.
Well, that's okay. So that is something I really want to ask you
Okay.
about what you
Yeah.
just said. Um, Different from nature. So I think
Well,
like
we're not.
yeah,
We're
exactly
not.
right. Like we can talk about the naturalistic
Fallacy, yeah.
fallacy, right? I mean, like we human beings are products of nature.
Mm-hmm.
So, is even our mechanical modern civilization a product of nature by the transitive
Well,
property?
when you watch that film, that's what I feel. It's like when I'm
Yeah, that's what I feel
when
too.
I'm in
Yeah.
it, it feels once I'm like fully in the flow of it, it doesn't feel bad. Like I said, you kind of derive like a weird, unusual pleasure from it. But when the rest of the time, when I'm like thinking about the pace that I'm going to have to enter into when I go to work, like I'm dreading it, I hate it, whatever. But when I
Right.
watch it side by side with the moving of the trees,
Yeah.
you know, the cars, the people, the dancing, all of it, it all just feels
Mhm.
like it's all the same thing, just in different
That's how
iterations.
that's how I feel too. And so it for me it raises this question like, okay, if factories and city streets and subways and weird like pods that you sleep in.
Yeah.
They have these in
Yeah, yeah,
Tokyo.
those were so
the weird, the
creepy.
weird sleep, the weird sleep
Uh,
pods. Yeah, factories, all this stuff. If if that is part and parcel of the rhythms of life, then why does it feel so fucking alienating when you're in it? And why does this indigenous way of living feel like home?
'Cause we're still animals.
We are still animals.
I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
yeah, I really think that's it. Like we we want I mean, to be in that machine like energy means to be in a kind of flight or fight. And no one wants to be in that
I
all the
think
time.
so.
That's that's you once said this to me. It was a really good quote. You said
Uh-oh.
hell is what did you say? Hell
Other
is your
people? No.
no, it was someone else. um
Was that
uh,
Schopenhauer? I think
I think
maybe.
that was one of the existentialists.
Yeah, right.
Um uh you said something like hell is your nervous system constantly being under duress or constantly
Oh my
being
God.
aggravated.
It's
That's
so
what hell
true. It's this
is.
low level anguish.
Yeah.
It gnaws at you. It's not so bad that you can't tolerate it, but it's just there, just
Yeah.
gnawing at you.
And even I who moves at a relatively slow pace except when I'm at work, like I'm up to a lot of different things all the time,
Right.
constantly trying to build more and more skills or take on new projects. And as happy and delighted and in a flow state as I am to do them, there is still kind of this like low grade background hum
Yeah.
of stress.
But let's not be weird eco people about this because the
Am I
grass
being?
is no, you're not. No, 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 no.
Mhm.
I'm just saying the grass is always greener on the other side.
Sure, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the Maasai people live in mud huts and don't have air conditioning. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, I mean, they might
It's
either feel totally in harmony and rhythm with all of that, or they might be wishing for some of the things that we have.
yeah, it's really really goddamn nice to have air conditioning and abundance of food
Yeah.
and there's this weird thing when I think when you're trying to find out to what extent like how much privilege you have
Hmm.
and how you should feel about that. Like on the one hand, oh gosh, my life is really privileged compared to someone else's life on the other side of the planet. But does that make me better than them? Well, no, right? Does it make me worse than them? Maybe it makes me kind of an entitled asshole. Or maybe it makes me weak.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I think probably
Yeah,
definitely
definitely,
it makes
definitely.
you weak, which I don't like that.
No.
But then shouldn't I be grateful for my blessings? So when does the
Right.
privilege stop and the blessings start? I mean, I'm just like thankful for the sun, you know. But then even saying that kind of feels like I'm just saying that so I, you know, seem like a virtuous person. It's very hard to tell um, where the virtue signaling stops and the being genuinely thankful for the sun and the rain and you know life on this beautiful wild planet begins. Because I feel both of those things.
Yeah, that's kind of in line with what I'm saying is like even when you watch this film and
Mm,
see the horrible things, quote unquote horrible, you can watch them and go, that too is a blessing, which is like a very strange experience. And
and so you say it's a blessing. So
not a
like in what
blessing like it's
sense?
a good, wonderful, pleasant
No,
experience.
I'm not challenging you. I'm curious
I mean, I mean,
about what you
I
mean.
mean that like life itself is a blessing, and life comes with death, and death takes
Yeah,
many, many, many shapes, and you can't have one without the other. And
right.
we talked about this as well a few weeks ago. We were talking about the rationalizing principle in the human being.
Oh my God,
That
yeah.
like this is what makes us different from animals, is that we're able to rationalize things. And
And the important thing there is that we don't reason, we rationalize,
yes,
right? We behave like animals and then come up with reasons for why we did after the fact. We
yeah.
don't come up with reasons for doing things and then do them.
Yeah, this whole podcast
Yeah,
is us being animals rationalizing something we just observed. Like we're
absolutely.
just monkeys talking right now. But
Yeah.
we were saying that the rationalizing principle is twofold, because the rationalizing
Mm,
principle can have you look at violence and say, oh, well, whatever. Or it can have you come up with ideas for peace, which animals can't do
mm,
necessarily. Maybe they can. I mean, we talked about how elephants have funerals and crows have
yeah.
murders and things like that.
Well, I think it really depends a great deal on how much capacity for socialization your brain can would, you know,
But
have.
then something like they show shots of Auschwitz in the film.
They do indeed.
And
Yeah.
you could argue that that is a highly rationalized form of violence.
Oh, absolutely.
It's animals still committing acts of violence, but in the most sophisticated way possible,
Yeah.
because
Right.
that's what the human brain is capable of, is coming up with ever more infinite, more detailed, more sophisticated and elegant, cool, cold, removed forms of violence, death, creation, birth, all of these
Hmm.
things.
Hmm.
And it's like, yeah, you need you need both. I don't like, you can't have one without the other.
Well, it really it's a really good observation because it raises the question about what's the purpose of becoming
Yeah,
civilized. I mean,
really.
we were joking about the noble savage earlier.
Hmm.
You do see indigenous tribes wiping out other indigenous tribes.
Yeah.
I mean, that was kind of and that's one of the interesting things, right? When like Jane Goodall came back and said, "Oh, look, the chimpanzees, they're so docile that they know how to commune with nature. It's we humans that are, so screwy in the head." And then she went back to study them again, and then that was when that famous chimp civil war happened, and one tribe of chimpanzees just genocided the other
Holy
one.
shit.
So you wonder, it's like, well, if the chimpanzees are doing it, and the purpose of civilization is to civilize you so that you don't do that, like, clearly civilization, there are cases where it is working, but there are also cases where it's not.
Yeah, where
And it's making it worse.
Yeah, it's making it more psychologically horrific.
Yeah, yeah.
But then again, like the only thing that rationalization can provide, perhaps, maybe, my theory is that it allows us to come up with other options besides violence.
Yes.
Doesn't mean we're not going to
Yes.
still find ways to be violent, and like, just because you get to be peaceful doesn't mean everybody else does, or like,
that's right. And
one
in
group
fact,
gets to be peaceful, another group has to be violent.
Yeah, and in fact, our they have that paradox, right? To make peace, you must prepare for war. So our peace is largely based on the fact that we could destroy each other.
Yeah,
it's the threat of force that enables the ability for peace to be there.
Yeah, you need it,
and that's super screwy.
I know.
Are you sorry? You saying you need it?
No, I think you need like the knowledge that you could be destroyed by another country, or you could go to jail, or you could do, like, this could happen to you if you engage in violence.
Right.
It's one of the things that keeps us in check.
Yeah. Like we're able to predict what could happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then theoretically, in the ability to predict things, we can get some awareness, and then maybe we have a little bit of freedom of choice in those moments where we can predict things and give ourselves the grace to choose.
Mm-hmm.
But then you watch movies like BARAKA, where it's like, gosh, you got this flock of flamingos that's flying around, and it looks exactly like the people of Tokyo walking around. I mean, they look exactly the same.
Yeah. Or the lined up fighter jet planes looking exactly like the flamingos
that's
flying.
such a cool shot.
Yeah, and we should mention there are no, which is interesting, there are no shots of animal on animal violence in this film. He could have made that comparison and been like, look, we're just like the animals.
That's so interesting.
And he left that out. He has nature in like a kind of perpetual harmony and movement and flow.
Do you think, is that a shortcoming of the film, that he doesn't talk about the destructive quality of nature?
Well, he does.
I mean,
in a way, he does. I was going to say there's volcanoes, there's storms, but
maybe I should have said the animal kingdom.
Well, earlier we said this film doesn't seem to have any opinions, but that might be one place where perhaps it is an opinion, where it's this is just a human thing to come up with.
It's this very that's all right. It's this very 90s take. Right, it's this very kind of bourgeois, like,
we are the world.
It's we are the world. It's fucking we are the world. Yeah. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, and it's like, oh, we humans are so horrible. Look at the beauty of nature and the wisdom of children, and oh, we're so bad. It's this kind of like original sin manifested,
kind of, though, like, because also, although there are no images of animal on animal violence, if you don't count humans as animals,
that's a really good point.
Is the fact that so many of the shots mimic each other, like we just said, the fighter jet planes looking like the flamingos flying. So in that sense, it feels like maybe there isn't an opinion. Maybe it is that like disinterested observatory thing. I really think the rhythm is key here, because that's in
Mm.
this film where I feel like you can find the most links between nature and people slash also nature, is how these things really, like, you can see how something that forms in nature naturally outcrops in like something we designed over here, because it looks like the thing that it came from, or it moves like the thing that we came from, or the place that we came from.
Yeah. Or nature and shall we say our machine, like the song of nature and the machine of culture, they share a common source.
That's why I had that line about like praying back to whence you came.
Mm.
Earth is in this conversation with itself, and like
Yeah.
mirroring itself and sending signals back to itself, back and forth, back and forth. The word baraka, by the way, means blessing, breath, essence of life from which the evolutionary process unfolds. So I
Yeah.
feel like this film is a kind of celebration or acknowledgement, even, of life. And life
Definitely.
echoes over and over to itself. And it feels like even the people that are doing the acts of violence, or even the people that are in the machine, are referring back to something more fast paced from our time, closer to nature, or to something more original. And
Hmm.
one is giving an idea to another. Like, I don't feel like there's this actual separation between these two things, or like there's anything wrong with either one of them. It's just life doing
Right.
life over and over and over and over again, reiteration after reiteration after reiteration. And it's all beautiful because it's all a reflection of life and how life
Yeah.
operates. A
Right.
fighter jet plane is a celebration of life because it's a celebration of the destructive quality of life. It's a celebration of the speed of birds. It's a celebration of a volcano when a bomb drops. Like, you get what I'm saying? This is the conundrum I'm
Yes.
in, because I'm able to see it this
It's
way and also go,
yeah.
isn't that also kind of fucked up? I don't know.
It's kind of fucked up. Yeah, it's kind of like that Hassani Sabah thing,
I know, I
that
fucking love that guy.
that we can talk about that. That's interesting. I don't mean on the air. I mean
No,
maybe we should have
privately
a
in a
conversation.
therapy
Yeah,
session.
right. Nothing is true and everything is permitted. Or it's like a hermetic thing, right? Like it's a very as above so below thing. Like you can't, or a very Taoist thing. Like you can't separate out the yang from the yin. Like they're so interwoven. And I think you are onto something, that if you're going to celebrate the goodness of life, you have to acknowledge the badness. And if you really take it to its logical conclusion, the goodness depends on the badness, and the badness depends on the goodness. So if you're going to say that life is good inherently, then you do kind of run into this thing where you have to at least be able to tolerate the bad. You can't get rid of the bad without getting rid of the good.
Yeah, but what I'm also saying is that the bad is also good, because it's like, as human beings evolving and quote unquote evolving,
Yeah, right. We'll see.
as we build or move through life, our inclination is to create. And in order to create, you must destroy things, yes. But the things we are creating that are even destructive in themselves are our way of mimicking the place where we came from, or the thing that
Mm,
the hidden memories. Like, we're afraid of the dark because we still imagine animals in the woods looking at us at our
yeah,
campfire, shit like that.
yeah.
But we
That's right.
still,
That's true.
like, this fucking lamp I'm looking at in front of me. Like, you could just go, that's a lamp, that was just like a cool artistic idea. But no, like, it symbolizes like a kind of something I've seen in nature before. I wouldn't have been like, a human being wouldn't have been able to create something in this particular way if they weren't of nature. Like it reflects nature and life back to me. It illumines like the sun. It's got a
Mm-hmm.
trunk like a
Mm-hmm.
tree, like, and it has an outcropping on the top, like the branches, like everything
Right.
around you looks and operates like something in nature. And nature is life. And life is a blessing. To be alive
Yeah.
is a
Right.
blessing. And so I just feel endless gratitude for being alive, so much so that when I see horrific shit on the screen, I'm grateful for that too. I don't know what to make of that. That's my real dilemma here.
Yeah. I think.
Maybe there's nothing to make of it. Just like there's nothing to necessarily make of the crap that we see on the screen.
Yeah. That you
When you
might be
watch
right about
other
that, actually.
films, they are also guided meditations, but they have words and songs that lead you to certain feelings and
Mm-hmm.
characters that they want you to root for or not root for. And
Yeah.
they are like guiding you in a meditation with a very particular goal in mind, maybe. They like hold your hand all the way, and then at the end, they either say, "Here, this is where we wanted to lead you," or they abandon your hand and say, "You figure it out." But
Well, it's a testament to this film that that they were aiming to showcase the interconnectedness of all things, and they didn't leave out Auschwitz and the Cambodian death
mhm.
grounds and the burning oil fields and all that just crazy nasty stuff.
Yeah, and it's not like you don't feel empathy for that stuff. You do.
Yeah, unless you're watching it on 2x speed.
So I have seen the film 2.5 times now.
Okay,
And the first time I saw it was with you. The second time I watched it here on regular speed. But then today I 2x'd it for like a half hour to.
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
and it
it
was very odd. I was just like, I just want to remember the images. That's it. And
yeah,
I
right.
didn't feel anything.
Yeah, I mean it's all frequency, right? I mean maybe if you're going at the wrong speed, or maybe certain feelings are just tied to certain speeds. Right. Like
Maybe.
when you hear a tritone, it just makes you feel like ah, regardless, right?
hmm Yeah, are we more capable of compassion and empathy at slower speeds,
I
at
think
more
so.
indigenous speeds?
Like I don't have time to care about everyone on the planet. Like I got shit to
Right?
do, and
Yeah. I think that's how a lot of people feel in the
yeah,
machine pace. And
yeah.
then if you're
The
also
machine.
constantly being numbed out by things moving faster than the speed of light across your eyes every fucking day,
Right, right.
it's a bad mix. Which is why it's my alone time is so important to me.
Truly, truly. But then again, like you can take that desire to slow down and be at one with nature. You can take that to this really weird place that is like, all right, well, let's just slow down the economy and like stop having kids and let's just
Mm,
like let's just be Luddites and let's be Amish and nothing against the Amish, of course.
no.
The furniture
The
thumbs up.
butter.
The butter is
Speaking
great. The
of
honey
butter.
is good. The honey is good. The butter is good. The furniture is good. But I think what I'm saying is that it just causes more schizoid living because it's like now you're living in this contemporary modern world and you think that it's wrong somehow. So now you've just added another layer of anxiety to it.
Yeah, I used to see this Jungian therapist, and he said something really interesting once about being intense in like present tense, past
Uh huh.
tense, future tense, and
Yeah.
being intense with life. Because you can also get, it's not like just speeding up makes you sociopathic necessarily. You can slow down and be so removed from modern society that you look at them with complete disdain and are so removed from them that you want nothing to do with them and you don't care what happens to them. That's possible too.
Yeah.
There's like a
Yeah.
kind, and like you can't slow down too much because if you do, then you moved at like a death crawl.
I just want to give people love.
Yeah, me too. But also, I have to I have to give myself love, and in order to do that for me, I have to slow
Well, you're,
down.
yeah, you're a people. Oh, yeah, okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, so I think they're like, even the indigenous cultures, though they're moving slower, they are still moving. There is still like, if we were looking at like a wave length, the wave is still
Mm.
going up and down, and
And
it's a little wider, but it's still moving. So
it's not like they can't, like, it's not like they can't move fast,
no,
right?
no.
They just move. They just seem to move at the correct speed all the time,
Well,
right? I mean, they kill. I mean, the Maasai people kill lions. It's like, okay,
yeah, that's
well,
fucking
time to make
cool.
you a man. Go kill a lion.
Yeah,
You know, you're not moving slow when you
respect.
kill a lion. You know,
I know,
like,
shit. That's awesome.
yeah.
So I don't know. This is, I think this is an important conundrum for modern people because things are only going to,
Mm.
I imagine, get more mechanized.
Yeah, definitely.
So
It's gonna get harder. It's gonna get worse.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so I hate the answer. There must be a balance, but like, you can't be too slow and you can't be too fast. I think you're going to have to, and I don't know. This is just based on my own experience,
Hmm.
but I think maybe you're going to have to like carve out time to slow down. And you're going to have to carve out time where you decide, okay, now I'm going to speed up. Now I'll move at the pace
Right.
everyone else moves. And
Right. Right. Right.
I
Right.
think that's the only shot you have, is to be able to say, now I will choose to do this, or now is the time where I
Yeah.
must do this. And later at this hour that I have carved out for myself, I will slow down, or something
I
like
think
that.
you. I think you also have to up your sensitivity too, because
Yeah.
if you're dull, then you can't have the discernment to know when it's appropriate to go at what speed.
Yeah, you'll never be able to figure this out if you're numb. You will never be able to figure it out if you're numb.
Yeah.
You have to
So
be
you have
inside
to.
your
Yeah.
body.
Yeah. So you really have to tolerate the pain.
Yeah,
Not even tolerate it. You have to like experience it, and even kind of like, I was gonna say love it or welcome it, but at least like make space for it. Maybe is the way to say it.
you always say something about like it being in the room with you.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
Well, I had a great teacher who would talk about like non-interference,
Hmm.
that you should practice non-interference with your feelings. You know, the good ones and the bad ones and the good ones. If you're anxious, okay, fine. You know, making yourself not anxious is interfering with it, and if you interfere with it, you're just going to get more
Hmm.
anxious. So you just say, I think basically it's like you have to recognize that it's not a threat.
No, it's just a feeling, and a feeling is just an electrical current, energy moving through your body, giving you fuel. Like, you could feel
Yeah.
anxiety and go, okay, this is just energy in my body. What do I want to do with this energy?
Right.
Instead of
Now
going,
you're
oh,
kind
I'm
of.
anxious, I can't do anything.
Yeah, 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 yeah. You have to be a magician like that. You have to be able to harness the energy that you have.
Yeah, because it wants to be used in a particular way, which is why expressing itself as anxiety or as
That's
anger.
very true. That's very true. Yeah.
And you can usually start to parcel out what that feeling wants from you if you just don't interfere. Just give it the chance
Right.
to be in the room with you.
But like you should also, I think you should also deal with your good feelings like this too, because
Absolutely.
if you're feeling happiness and you try to interfere with it, you'll try to say like, okay, I want you to stay with me, stay with me. You know, keep me happy longer, and then immediately it'll go away.
Yeah.
The minute you start chasing it, it
Yeah,
vanishes.
you don't have to chase it. Just enjoy being with it.
Yeah,
Like how
right,
you
right.
would feel if you were calm and sitting outside under a tree or something.
Yeah. I liked how in the documentary, about this documentary, they talked about how when they were with the Maasai people, like people would ask them, was it weird for the indigenous
Hmm.
people that a film crew was there? And the film crew said, no, we were there. They treated us like a passing cloud. They were so absorbed and solid in their own life.
Hmm.
Then again, here in the modern world, the contemporary world, the industrialized West. I mean, our lives are nothing but constant change.
Mm.
You can't go a minute without getting like alert, alert, alert.
I know.
Are you alert? Are you alert? There's something to be alerted about.
Uh,
Yeah, exactly. It's frenetic.
Stop.
It's yeah, really, it's
Leave
crazy.
me alone. Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I found out? I mean, there's tons of things I didn't know what I was looking at or didn't know the details of like why, and I would just have to guess. So like I love watching the dervishes. Those are the
Yeah, the
people that
dervishes are
that
great.
spin in circles for people who don't know in order to pray to God. And I was wondering, I mean, I could guess why their one hand was up and one hand was down, like as above, so below.
Well,
And it
yeah,
it is.
right.
It's like receive the blessings of God and bring the blessings down to earth. Cool. But then I was looking up why are they dressed like that? Why those colors? And I found out that
Mm,
what they're doing is they're doing like a death spin. They're trying to have the ego die so that all they can do is feel the presence of God within them. And
right.
the white outfits they wear are like the emptiness, like the ego being washed away and a new thing being born.
Mm,
They sometimes wear a black or brown cape, and that's to signal like dirt, like the dirt of the ground.
okay.
And then the long headpieces that they wear are supposed to represent tombstones. Isn't that amazing?
Cool.
I didn't
Cool.
know that.
Now, see, that's the kind of death shit that I can get
I
behind.
love that death shit.
Yeah, that's really great.
Yeah.
That's really great. Hold on. The dervishes were such a good image, but there was a juxtaposition with the dervishes that I thought was really, yeah, that they had the tantric wizard
The hair
in
wizard,
Tibet.
the hair shaman.
Yeah, at the beginning, and then the Jews at the Wailing Wall, and then we saw the dervishes, and you could just see how they're all in the same rhythm,
Yeah, exactly.
and it's not freaky necessarily, but it you realize that when you look at, I mean, I don't watch Friends except to be reminded that I'm always in danger of making something stupid. I'm sorry, Jennifer Aniston. I love you. Okay, all right. Sorry. It's just so lowest common denominator. I'm
It's
sorry.
okay. No,
Anyway,
it's cool.
it's some people like it. I love that. Anyway, actually, what I'm about to say it makes it okay. It's like, so when you're watching Friends, you think you're watching Ross
Oh,
and Chandler, right, and Phoebe and whoever else, right, but you're really not. You're watching rhythm.
mm-hmm.
You're watching vibration.
Yeah.
That's what you're watching.
Yes.
You're not, form is kind of like your mind puts that together and then you think that's what you see, but what you're actually looking at is just wiggles.
You just used Friends to sum up everything I was thinking.
All
That's
right.
amazing.
Well, there we go. Well, I think that's kind of the joy of this film is that it really shows you that,
Mm-hmm.
because we tend to think of Jews and Muslims to be, oil and water. And it's like, well, they're doing the same thing,
Yeah.
just in different clothes. I mean, and I don't mean that in a reductive or cynical kind of way.
No.
I mean that in an expansive, exalted kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't seem like there's any way out of being human.
No.
There's many ways to be human, but there doesn't seem to be any way out of being human.
Yeah.
But then again, the film is made at a time when, like, universalism is this really powerful idea, but universalism is just kind of a Christian or Christian civilization idea, and we saw how successful we were bringing democracy to Iraq, but oops, that didn't work. You know what I mean? So it's like, how far does universalism really go? But then obviously these are two people in different clothes doing the same thing. So that's really where I struggle's the wrong word, but that's really where I like. Such a better listener than I am. That's
Oh, honey.
that's really where I am kind of caught in an eddy. There's a tension there for me that it's like clearly there's something universal at play,
Right.
and yet universalism not only is not the philosophy du jour, but there's serious flaws with it. But it's evidently there. So I don't know.
What are those flaws, Will?
What are those flaws?
What do you think?
Well, I mean, people come from different value universes, right?
Yeah.
Like I think one of Zizek's insights is
Slavoj Žižek. Yeah.
Yeah. One of Slavoj Žižek's insights is, what Christians say is, hey, we're all children under God, so long as you believe in the God we believe in, right? And it's kind of the same thing with like Western liberal values, right? Liberalism is based on kind of the same idea that it's like, hey, we're all free and equal as long as you believe that we're free and equal.
As long as you believe in science, in all the other shit on that poster that goes in people's yards.
Yeah, right. In this house. So weird.
I'm terrified of those signs.
That's a great example of what I'm talking about, actually, right there.
Yeah, those signs scare the crap out of me.
They think it's a universal position, and it's definitely not.
It's not, dude.
It's very specific. It's very specific.
And it's so, like, follow this or else, which is terrifying. Like,
yeah.
And they don't see how dark that is.
No, they really don't.
They think they're doing something really good by putting that in their yard. And I'm like, guys, this is...
Well, in the sense that they're practicing a very kind of advocacy for an open society, but just like you say, it's open society or else. No, I think you're talking about like authoritarianism.
Yeah, it feels tyrannical.
Yeah,
like
it is.
Like Big Brother's watching. That's what it feels like to me when I see that. So I don't like it.
Well, it all goes back to Hobbes, right?
Leviathan? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like life. This is actually Hobbes is really kind of useful here. Like life is nasty, brutish, and short. So we do need civilization to protect us from nature.
Because if all we experienced was brutality, this would suck.
Yeah, right. And BARAKA doesn't show you, as you were saying earlier, it doesn't show you the brutal side of nature.
It doesn't even necessarily, it shows you the brutal results of what human beings do, but you don't actually see any violent acts. You just see the leftovers or the preparation for, which is also interesting.
The chicken beaks is as violent as it gets.
That's the most violent part.
Admittedly is pretty goddamn violent.
Love the cheeks.
Yeah, I know.
There is a beauty to the brutality, but you can't see the beauty of the brutality unless you can find the beauty of like removed from brutality.
That's right. I think that's a really good point. I mean, we watch very violent movies.
Oh yeah, we love brutality.
Yeah. It's we are very abstracted away from that violence, and yet because we're abstracted, that's why we can away from it. That's why we can be so intimate with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's really weird.
It's like when you look into the abyss and it looks back at you.
Yeah.
If you can get that intimate with darkness, it can be very dangerous, but it can also be incredibly profound.
Well, I think you have to, because it is profound and it's a great teacher. And if you're not intimate with darkness, you never have the insight of, oh, wait, this sign on people's front lawn that's advocating for a free society is necessarily enforced by violence.
Yeah.
It just never occurs to you that's why.
Yeah. That's what freaks me out about it. Is like, okay, you believe that and that's what you want. You're insisting that I also believe. How far are you going to take that?
Right.
Are you going to come to my house? Are you going to beat me in the street? Are you going to drop a bomb? Like, how far are you going to go?
Are you going to try to assassinate a political leader? Are
Yeah.
you, are you going to storm a capitol? Are you going to you going to cause a riot in the street? I mean, we are seeing political violence over the past 20 years coming to a huge, huge head in this country.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, the realists among us would say, kind of like what we were saying earlier, is like, well, we're all animals, just rationalizing it after the fact, and
Mhm.
nothing's really changed. But I don't know if that is just at that level of analysis, it still just doesn't sit right with me, because just as you were saying earlier, like, the fact that we're aware of these things, doesn't that mean we have a choice not to be violent?
Yeah, and it seems insufficient to stop there. Like, a part of
Mm.
why I've never done a podcast is because I'm so hyper aware that I'm a fucking monkey talking, like, and
Yeah,
I'm
that's
rationalizing
true.
all of these things that I'm talking about, and I'm saying
Mm.
things that are new, but I'm also saying things that have been said a million times in a million other ways. It almost makes you not want to speak or participate or add more to the noise. It starts to feel like vomit. And yet, there's like an and yet at the end of that sentence, and I don't know what comes after it, but
It does raise the question, like, why are we bothering to speak when the silence is so much more profound? Like, why are we disturbing the silence?
yeah, and when you see a movie like this, it makes you wonder, why is there always so much verbiage in a film? And again, I think it goes back to that idea of like trying to guide you to a particular thought or a particular way of being or a particular
Yeah.
idea.
And how do you feel about that? Do you resent that? Like, do you not like being guided? Or do you appreciate that? I mean, are you being guided into something that you don't want to be guided toward? Like, how do you deal with that?
Well, I think people love films the most when you can't see the man behind the curtain, where uh you are being led, but you're agreeing to being led and you forget that you're being led.
That's like seduction, right? That's
Yeah, it's
like,
seduction. A film is
yeah,
very seductive.
a
And
good one is
a
anyway.
good one.
Yeah.
You know me, I watch analysis videos for hours and hours and hours after I consume a piece of media. I
It's
just
like you consume the piece of media so that you can watch the analysis.
Yeah, so I can consume it even more until there's nothing left but ash and bone.
The devouring Chelsea.
And when I watch films, oftentimes I find it very difficult to not have that kind of what we were talking about earlier, that like
Mm.
oversoul bird's eye view. So
Yeah.
so when a film really takes me, it has to, for me, it has to be very seductive. But I think for most people, that's what
I'm the
they
same
want
way.
anyway. People want to be seduced.
Yeah, yeah.
People want story, people want myth, people want meaning, and seduction provides all of that.
All that. I mean, life is so dull. It's so monotonous. It just goes on and on and on. It's like, oh, another day.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you're an indigenous person, you have rituals and rites and dances and songs. Like,
Yeah, I was about to say, I think they do. I think they must like make it's like that scene in Mary Poppins where they turn everything into a game to clean up.
yeah,
Like, everything is ritualized and ceremonial.
yeah,
Because it keeps it fresh. It keeps it entertaining.
it keeps it entertaining. It also keeps it feeling alive.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
I
Definitely.
think what causes dullness is when you feel like you're like standing around in empty air, or like the objects in front of you are dead. If you can feel like there's something else underneath everything that
Mm-hmm.
is pulsing all the time.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, that's why everybody doom scrolls on Instagram, because our brains are naturally excited and stimulated by movement. When we see movement, we just were drawn to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe like what you're saying is that ritual and ceremony and also film,
Mm-hmm.
these are very sophisticated forms of that.
Yeah, of meaning making and seduction and entertainment. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you, I don't know about you, are you just kind of getting over the meaning crisis?
Yes, 100%.
I
I'm
like,
in it literally right now. I'm in the meaning crisis at this very moment while we're
we
recording the
all
podcast.
are, we all are.
Yeah.
But I'm even talking about like, I'm like kind of even done talking about the meaning crisis. Like, you know, our dear friend Nathan.
Adore Nathan. Love
We
Nathan.
adore Nate. We love you, Nathan Kramer. If you're listening,
You're
we
the
love you.
best.
You're the
You're the
best, dude.
best
You're the
among
best.
us.
Honestly, you really are. He's the best person in the world. We should just get him on to talk to him. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he saw the movie or not.
Let's get. Can we put his face on T-shirts?
Yeah.
I just want people to see Nathan and love Nathan.
Maybe just like get his face on T-shirts with no context.
Exactly.
Right?
Just his face.
Like, this is Nathan. Yeah.
Let us know if you're into it, Nathan.
Yeah. Oh my god.
So Nathan.
Anyway, yeah. So Nathan always talks about like, you can say, "Oh God, the world is meaningless," or you can say, "Oh, awesome, the world is meaningless."
I think that's what Camus is always on about. Is like, it's fucking absurd. You gonna kill yourself or keep going?
Right. And I guess that's sort of the elevated takeaway from postmodernism, right? Is that because phenomena do not have inherent meaning, you have a blank canvas. Right. And that's kind of scary and tyrannical, because anyone who's tried to make art has felt that, oh my God, I could do anything. And that in of itself is quite jarring. I think there is a visceral embodied sense that there is meaning out there. And so when you find out that when you find out that all it is your brain projecting, or your mind projecting, or a karmic seed projecting outward, when you find that out, it does create cognitive dissonance.
It's very unsettling. You feel like you have no ground beneath you. And I think postmodernism is scary because it's like the closest we can get to like death with ideas, because it's literally just destroying the thing.
Well, that's all they did.
Yeah. But that's what's happening now. And that, like, if we were to project a little onto the meaninglessness and take a bird's
which we have to
keep going.
Yeah.
And take a bit of a bird's eye view of like time and culture and all of these things. Like it makes sense that we're having so much political turmoil. It makes sense that there's like violence. Like we're in a particularly destructive time.
Yeah. It's a meaning breakdown everywhere.
And it's probably necessary. It's part of that rhythm, that wave of creation and destruction. As long as something gets created after this, then it's done its job.
Well, okay, so I think this is why we started this podcast, because, I mean, when I was studying clown, my teacher, who's this great guy, talked about how when society goes down, art goes up, and we haven't seen that.
Not yet.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I'm trying. I'll tell you why I'm into this podcast and why I thought film poems was a great idea, because it's not just poems about a film, but there's a kind of analysis out there. Like when you go to read critics of movies that come out, the criticism itself is mechanical,
Mm-hmm.
and it's bogged down in the form so much, and it's bogged down in this like academic point of view so much that it fails to express anything. And you know, me as an artist, I don't want to be a critic of art. That's, to me, like if I was on Inside the Actors Studio and they asked me what job would you hate to have, it would be art critic. You know? But I would much rather be like an underwater welder than a fucking art critic. You know? But I do want to be able to talk about films and art in an aesthetic,
Mm-hmm.
poetic way. And I think that that part of the reason that we're not making great art, even though our society is crumbling around us, is that we've lost the ability to speak aesthetically.
Mm.
We don't even think aesthetically anymore. We don't think poetically. We're all so dull and distracted and like worn out. Like how can you live an aesthetic life in such a circumstance? It doesn't make sense. So I think maybe that's one reason why we're not seeing a renaissance in art right now, is because, you know, we've all been made very dull.
I think it takes great discipline to live an aesthetic, beautiful, poetic life now.
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Perhaps
That's
always
so true.
That's been true. I think beauty and discipline go hand in hand. You have to actively choose it and refuse ugliness.
People are going to really challenge
I don't
this.
care. I'm finding it so true even in my own personal life.
It's like you go out and have an art career and tell us that discipline is not required for beauty. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
but
know? Beauty can be so small. And like I really think I'm beginning to think that ugliness is genuinely harmful to the human being. And I don't mean ugliness like ideological ugliness, like brutality, like an abstract ugliness. I mean actual ugliness. Crappy films, shitty, ugly, like Sims buildings.
Well, so I totally agree with you. Totally agree with you. But here's an interesting, here's one place where people are going to criticize us because we just said that that phenomena are inherently meaningless and it's all about what you project onto it. But now you're saying that ugliness is bad for the human being, but then are you also saying that? Are you saying that beauty is in the eye of the beholder and therefore ugliness is too? Like we can define beauty and ugliness to be anything we want? Or are you saying that beauty is inherent and therefore ugliness is inherent? And so that it's more easily defined?
Well, let me use this film as an example. I think something that is truly beautiful is something that when you experience it or interact with it, it leaves you feeling healthy and vital. You feel alive by interacting with it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I know we've argued that everything just kind of is. I know that. But there is still the fact that we are repelled by death and are moved by life, and things that objects or pieces of art or anything that harmonically represents life, I think is like food and nourishment for the body, like on a subatomic level. And if you're surrounded by things that don't reflect life at all, just seem like a weird amalgamation of like distorted thought power, your body actually finds it repulsive and unhealthy.
I think this is right on the money. Like the classic counter argument to, well, life is the world is just ideas and it's all a dream and it's not real, is okay. Well, if that's the case, go stick your hand in a candle. Right? And it's so pain. So physical pain will remind you that the world is real,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, of course, that's not a good enough definition
No.
for the world being real, but you'll have a really hard time denying the fact that you're hurt when you have your hand over a candle. And what you're saying is so right. I think that that aesthetics and beauty and ugliness and aesthetics are felt in an embodied way. So to me, it's to me you're kind of making a parallel argument between how to get your mind around beauty and ugliness and what it feels like when you stick your hand in a candle. It's like, okay, yeah, so it's not just something that you can arbitrarily and subjectively define. There's a body
Yeah,
component to
it's
it.
not like when I see the images of Auschwitz, I'm feeling so blissed out on life that I can feel the same kind of beauty that I feel when I look at the sun rising. I
Yeah.
have to tell myself it's beautiful and find things beautiful about it, and it still causes a little bit of bodily pain.
And it's kind of indirect, isn't it? It reminds you that, for me, I shouldn't say for you, for me, when I see terrible, brutal images, if I do the mental check and I remind myself that this is an indication that things can be so much better, then I actually do feel like in my body less nihilistic, right? I can
Mm-hmm.
feel
Mm-hmm.
that it's worthwhile. If I use that terrible image as a reminder of a beautiful image,
Yeah.
I can use that as a way to
And you
go
see,
forward.
this is like it takes something to do that. That's why I say there's discipline involved. Like you have to tell yourself.
Yeah,
And like you have to
yeah, you're right.
refuse the
That's true.
ugliness.
What can you say more about that?
Well,
What do you mean by
here's an
refuse?
example. Okay, so the place I'm staying right now. The water is full of heavy metals and stuff, so it's not recommended
Uh
to drink
oh.
from the spout. And so the people here buy plastic water bottles all the time instead of just getting like a filter or something. And
Okay.
I'm in my room, which I'm actively trying to make as beautiful as possible. And I had to keep
Yeah.
bringing these water bottles in my room. And if you look at a water bottle for a really long time, it's plastic. It's like, it's just, you just feel that it's
Yeah.
bad. You just know
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
good. So I bought a little water decanter that I put the water into, and I keep the decanter in my
Oh.
room. And now all of a sudden there's like a lovely little ritual that happens with my drinking
Yeah.
water. And now I
Right.
feel healthy again. I feel vitalized again.
So that's great. There's some things I noticed in that. So first of all, aesthetics have to do with the five
Mm-hmm.
senses, right? So they're definitely embodied. Yeah, right. Like you're seeing this ugly thing. That's your sight. So yeah. So beauty is related to aesthetics, which is mediated by the senses, and that got me thinking about
Mm-hmm.
food. And when food smells
Mm-hmm.
good, it makes you feel good, and you want to eat it.
Whereas rotten food will like, you're not going anywhere near that.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
your body just
Exactly.
knows.
And it rejects
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, beauty's great because we're talking about the sensational parts of it and how that's embodied. But then, in a movie like Baraka, especially that shot, you asked me what my favorite shot was. This is my other favorite shot at the end, where you see the mosque in
Mm-hmm.
Shiraz, and it's got the mirror
Oh,
coating
yes.
all
Uh-huh.
over, and that is unspeakably beautiful, and it exalts you. It
Mm-hmm.
exalts you.
Mm-hmm.
So beauty has this ability to connect the lowest of the low to the highest of the high.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to always be in objects either. Like the part of what's beautiful about the film is just seeing how nature already does this.
Yeah, yeah,
Or all of the things that people build that do this, all of the beautiful things.
there's a divine quality to
Yeah,
it for
you
sure.
feel healthy, you feel
Yeah,
exalted, you feel
it's
life is
it's
exalted.
beatific.
Yeah, it takes you to,
It's
yes, that's the
beatific.
perfect word. Yeah.
Yeah, and what's really crazy is how so much of the film, and you get this from watching the documentary about it, that so much of the film is like cosmically connected. What was that when we were making movies in New York? What was, not the word filmatic, but we would say we're plugged
Yeah,
in,
we're so
right? We're
plugged
so
in.
plugged in. Like the first shot of the film is the
Hmm.
mountain, and you see you're in Japan, you're there. So he sets the camera up by the pool of hot water where the monkeys live. There's no monkeys
Hmm.
around, and what Ron Fricke wants is a Buddha-like figure, a non-human Buddha-like figure, to look at the camera and open its eyes and close its eyes. That's all he wants. And then a monkey shows up and just does it.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Just does it. And there's so many, I wrote some of them down. There's so many little bits
Yes.
like this in this film. And it reminded me of when we made the hot dog movie,
Yeah.
and we were gonna submit, which we did submit it to No Budge. We got to resubmit it because we need to
Uh-huh.
re-edit it because the cut's not very good, and that's why we
I
didn't get
think it's
in. But
great, but yeah.
it does need to be recut though. But anyway, like the fact that in the last shot, the two guys that run No Budge just walk through the
Yeah.
frame.
We knew we were going to submit to them and they just walked through the final
They
shot.
just
It was
walk through it.
amazing.
Yeah, and there's this karmic quality. You know that Jung quote when they asked him, "Do you believe in God?" And he said, "Yeah, when I was a kid." He's like, "Do you believe in God now?" He's like, "No, I know."
Uh-huh.
It's just too.
It's too evident.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, coincidence is kind of the wrong word because everything is synchronized, but synchronicity is. I think that's what Baraka really shows you, is that everything is already
Yeah, you
synchronized.
don't have to go looking for it or try to receive it or get it.
Yeah,
It's all
that's
already
it.
here, already happening all the time.
That's my takeaway from Baraka. There it
Yeah.
is.
The world is already in harmony.
It's already harmonized. Yeah.
Yeah. All you have to do is tune in. Yeah, so speaking of tuning in, thanks for tuning in. We just want to remind y'all that this was the award winner pick we picked, so it won. What did it win, Will?
It won the Montreal World Film
The
Festival.
Montreal World Film Festival.
Way to go, Ron Fricke.
Kudos to you, Ron Fricke. Really quick, we just want to take a moment here and include our sponsors. We could not do this episode without Michael Ayers and his amazing press, 1000 Pedal Press. Thank you so much for your support and endlessly always supporting us and our projects. We love you, dude. All right. That's going to conclude our chat about Baraka. Remember to join us on patreon.com/filmpoems so you can catch the chats we couldn't include in the free version of this episode and all the other bonus goodies. Next week is the theme foreign film, and we're going to be talking about The Bad Sleep Well by Akira Kurosawa. So stay tuned and get watching so you can join us for our spoiler-laden breakdown of the film next week. If you want to see what else we'll be watching for this month, join us on Instagram. You can find me at Chelsea Christopher and Will at Will Turner Sanders. Thank you so much for listening. Do you have a catchy closeout, Will?
Take some time out of your day to watch movies. Don't be satisfied with the crap that the media tells you.
Refuse ugliness. Refuse crap.
There we go. That's good. Refuse
Yeah.
ugliness. I love it.